Hello everyone, this part of our discussion on chemical thermodynamics is dedicated to introduce the second law of thermodynamics. Before jumping into the law directly, let's go through some daily life scenarios. We have observation that water flowing from higher plane to lower plane, or a cup of tea getting cold over time when kept open in the room, or electricity flowing from the battery to the bulb, or perfume molecules are spreading into the room when the bottle is open. All these processes, different processes that we observe in different contexts of our daily life have one thing in common, that all these processes occur by itself without requirement of external struggle or external supplement of energy. So the nature has got a tendency that this process occur without any external interference. So such processes occurring by the nature's urge are called spontaneous process. And if you think, what about the reverse of this process? Can you imagine water flowing from lower plane to higher plane, or tea getting warmer over time when kept in the room? This reverse of the spontaneous process, they do not occur naturally, or the reverse of spontaneous processes are non-spontaneous. They do not occur by nature's tendency. Or in short, the spontaneous processes are direction specific. They occur in one direction or in a given direction. And why spontaneous processes are direction specific and why the reverse process is not spontaneous, those questions can be answered by the second law of thermodynamics. That can be given through a wonderful example given by my favorite authors Atkins and T. Paula. Consider a rubber ball falling from the height to floor, and we can see that the ball falls down to the floor, jumps up again, but this time to a lower height than the previous one, and again it jumps to the floor, and then it jumps up, and this happens and every time with the lower and lower steps, and in the end it stops at the floor. Can you imagine the reverse, that the ball resting on the floor is lifted up by its own tendency? No, the second case is not spontaneous. This does not occur with nature's urge. And let's see the details of what's happening behind. In the first case, the first spontaneous case, you can see that the ball molecules have got certain amount of energy. When it jumps on the floor, when it comes in contact with the floor molecule, the energy contained in the ball molecules, part of the energy is given or dispersed to the floor molecules. And therefore it jumps up this time again but to a lower height because it does not have sufficient energy to jump up to the previous height now. And again when it comes back to the floor and touches the floor molecule, the ball molecule, the energy contained in the ball molecules can be again dispersed or can be transferred to the floor molecule. So there occurs a dispersal of energy from the ball molecules to the floor molecules. On the other hand, for the reverse to happen, that is the ball molecules getting lifted up, the energy present in the floor molecules should be concentrated on the ball molecule so that it is lifted up. So for the second case to occur, there should be a concentration of energy on the ball molecules. And this is not happening. And if you look at the ball, even after rest, it has got certain random molecular motion. But in the second case, in the non-spontaneous case, the ball molecules should move in a particular order or in a given direction or more oriented. So, in the spontaneous process, the first one, dispersal of energy occurs and the molecular motion become more random. Whereas in the non-spontaneous process, which we expect to happen but does not happen by nature's urge, needs concentration of energy onto the ball and the molecules to be more organized, more ordered and directioned. And let's see the same again through another example. If you keep this bottle open, you can see that molecules are diffusing through the air throughout the volume of the room. And during this diffusal, there is an enhanced or randomized molecular motion because the molecules present within the bottle before, which were restricted within the volume of the bottle, are now moving on to a larger volume with an enhanced degree of motion. And energy of the molecules get dispersed throughout the room. On the other hand, if the reverse to occur, if all the molecules present in the room were to be contained within the bottle, we should have a restricted molecular motion and localization of energy from the whole space of the room to the volume of the bottle. So that is why the spontaneous case occur because there involves a dispersal of energy and a randomized molecular motion. And this is what the second law predicts. In the first law, we have seen there which are the possible changes for the given set of conditions of the system. And the second law, on the other hand, talks about the spontaneous changes among the possible processes. First law tells us whether a set of initial conditions can be changed to a set of final conditions in terms of internal energy. And the second law tells us whether the conversion of a set of initial conditions to a set of final conditions is spontaneous, and this is in terms of entropy. So the second law talks in terms of entropy, whereas the first law talks in terms of internal energy. And let's now see the statement of second law there. Entropy of an isolated system increases during the course of a spontaneous change. So for a spontaneous change to occur, the entropy of the system, entropy of the isolated system increases. And the total entropy change therefore should be greater than 0. And the total entropy change involves the entropy change happening to the system and the entropy change happening to the surroundings during the process. So the total entropy change should be greater than 0 if it is to be a spontaneous change. Or in other terms, entropy of the universe, system and surroundings together constitute universe, therefore entropy of the universe tends to increase. That is the simplified version of the second law of thermodynamics. And now let's see what is entropy. Entropy can be easily visualized with this example. On one fine morning, you see that your room is quite a chaos and therefore you decide to make it in an order. So you have an order in the end, but after a while, after a couple of days, you see that your order is gone and you've got a higher degree of entropy soon. So your room is not kept in order. That's not your fault. It's the universe's fault because universe has got a tendency, natural tendency to have an increased randomness or increased disorder, that is entropy. And energy dispersal accompanying a spontaneous process involves energy transfer in the form of heat. And heat, we know, we have seen in one of the previous sessions where we introduced heat, that heat makes use of random molecular motion. Therefore, entropy or randomness can be expressed in terms of heat transfer at a given temperature. Therefore, the small amount of entropy change during the infinitesimally small step of a process can be expressed as the heat transfer involved in that infinitesimally small process at the given temperature. So, the reversible heat with respect to temperature gives you the small change in entropy. Therefore, the total entropy change during the whole process can be the integral of heat with respect to temperature. So, you have delta S as heat divided by temperature. And you can express the heat in terms of heat capacity at constant pressure. Cp/dt will be the heat. Therefore, after the integration, you get this relation, that is, the change in entropy can be reflected in terms of heat capacity. And the entropy change of the system is written in terms of the reversible heat, whereas entropy change that the surroundings experience is expressed in terms of irreversible heat. Therefore, the total entropy change in a process is the sum of the two and it is always positive. And therefore, irreversible spontaneous changes take place with an increase in entropy. Let's demonstrate this through an example. Consider our cup of coffee at a temperature TH with a higher temperature TH and the surroundings is at the moment at a colder temperature TC. The entropy change experienced by the system will be the heat transferred at the temperature TH, and the heat is negative here because heat is given out to the surroundings. And the entropy change that the surroundings experience can also be written with the same heat because the heat given by the system is taken by the surroundings. Therefore, the heat transfer that the surroundings experience is again Q reversible but with the opposite sign because surroundings takes in the heat but at the temperature Tc. For the total entropy change, if you sum up the two, we can see that the first term here, the negative term, is lower because the TH is higher than TC. Therefore, the first term, the negative term will be smaller than the positive term. So, in short, the total will be greater than 0 or positive. So, irreversible spontaneous change like transfer of heat from the cup of coffee to the surroundings occurs with an increase in entropy. And entropy change of the system is a state function because it is independent of the path, whereas the total entropy change is a path function. It depends on whether the reversible or irreversible process occurs. That's why the irreversible processes, the spontaneous process, occur naturally with an increase in entropy. Now let's check the temperature dependence of entropy. Let's consider two scenarios. At temperature T1, the system has got an entropy S1, and at T2, the system has got new entropy S2. The system at temperature T1 is converted to temperature T2 in a process, and the entropy change associated will be given as the difference in the two entropies experienced by the system, because the system entropies are state functions, and therefore rearranging this, we can have this expression, and we have before entropy change in terms of heat capacity. So if you replace it, you can see there entropy of the system at a temperature T2 can be calculated if we have the entropy at a temperature T1 and the heat capacity is known. And likewise, at constant volume conditions, you can write the same, but in terms of CV, the heat capacity at constant volume. That's about introduction to second law and the concept of entropy, and in the next session we will see the entropy changes associated in various processes like free expansion, phase transition and gas mixing. Thank you.